The first artist that we'll hear from today is Bindi Cole, who's standing next to me. Bindi is an emerging artist, I guess, still, yeah, on the cusp of emerged, I guess, from Melbourne, and is of Australian and Wathaurong descent. A lot of her works deal with the ideas around Aboriginality and representation. So if everybody could please make Bindi feel welcome, I'm sure she'll appreciate it, and I'll hand over to Bindi.
Hi everyone. I was going to sit, but I think I should stand. And I was going to sit because I actually flew in at 5:30 this morning and haven't had very much sleep. So hopefully I'll be coherent this morning or this afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it a lot. It's great to get such a warm welcome. Now, where do I start? This is a new work that I've made specifically for this show, but it's an idea that I've been exploring probably for the last year or so. I originally made a video called 70 times 7, which was a video of myself and 6 other Aboriginal community members repeating the mantra, "I forgive you," until a shift occurred. What I was trying to do was capture true experiences of forgiveness on film. When I approached people to do that, I didn't give them a specific thing to forgive, but instead explored how forgiveness had worked in my own life with people. And so I guess this is a follow-on from that work, and something that I'm still trying to resolve and work out from within myself. When I was a child, I grew up initially with my mum, who had been a heroin addict and a prostitute. And when I was 8 years old, I was taken from her to live with my grandmother, my Aboriginal grandmother. And then when I was 12, 13, I went back with my mum. And when I was 16, she died. And as a result, that left me very, very broken and damaged as a person. And going into my teenage years, late teen years, and into my early 20s, I was really quite destructive and out of control. And I think really for me, that trauma and that destruction was really a manifestation of the trauma that I had experienced as a child and as a teenager. And I had to go through a really intense process of healing. And a big part of that healing was about forgiveness. I had to forgive the people and events of my life that had really led me to that place. And the other thing I guess that occurred was, even though as a child I had been quite traumatized, as an adult I kind of became someone who dealt out trauma as well. And so I not only needed to forgive the people and events in my life that had hurt me and brought me to that place, I also needed some kind of forgiveness myself too. And so I guess I got to a place where I was feeling much better inside myself. Finally, it took a while, and it was a long process. And the majority of that process and that healing, the responsibility for that actually fell on me, even though it wasn't necessarily my fault that I was in the position that I was in. And so I guess I got to thinking about how, particularly having spent time in a large family, my dad, which is the Aboriginal side of my family, has 8 brothers and sisters, and a lot of them were very dysfunctional. And then spending a lot of time within my Aboriginal community in Melbourne, that's where I come from, and that's where my heritage is. I see that there's a lot of dysfunction, both in my family and in the broader community, and obviously the media shows us, the media mostly shows us the dysfunction that's happening around Australia and Aboriginal communities. It's actually really way too focused on, in my opinion. And so I got to thinking that if this kind of healing could work for me, that came from forgiveness, could it work on a broader level? And could it also work for trauma that exists because of generational experience as well? So I think not only did my destruction come about because of the trauma that I'd experienced, but I think that it was also passed on to me as a learned experience as well from my mum and my grandmother, and I don't even know where they got it from, you know. And so I guess I just wanted to really look at, is that possible? There's so many solutions that are offered in relation to the negative experiences that people are having because of trauma. A lot of it is money and resources and band-aids and this and that. But I'm beginning to think what's really needed is a really large-scale healing. And I don't know how to bring that about. I just know what worked for me. And and it's something that I've been sitting and thinking about for a long time. This work took me months and months and months. I hand-stuck every feather myself in my garage, in my little studio garage with my TV and bags and bags of emu feathers, which coincidentally smell like horses. So it's something that I've been pondering for quite a while, and I don't want to offer a blanket solution. I don't know if this is the solution. I just know that forgiveness has been a huge part of my solution in bringing me to a place where I feel healed and whole. And I guess the work operates on a lot of levels, because not only is it actually comes from a really personal place for me, but I guess everybody who then sees it is going to project their own stuff onto it too, and view it in a way that is completely personal to them, as all art is, I suppose. People have also said, "Oh, are you forgiving Andrew Bolt?" and and things like that. And I would say yes, I am. I actually was really hurt through that process, but I realise now that for me to work through it and let go of it, I actually have to forgive him too. And it's not something that I am able to do in an instant. It's something that I have to do every day. And not only for him, but for the things in my life and for the people that hurt me too, because these things keep trying to creep back up. I have to continually choose to forgive all the time. Yeah. I think it might be interesting to take some questions. I hope people have something to say, because I'd be really interested in what people think too, I reckon, and it'd be great to get a bit of a conversation going. Hi. Yeah. She asked why the emu feathers, because I don't think there is another microphone. I had an opportunity to go and to the National Gallery of Australia or the National Museum of Australia and see some artefacts that were made by my direct ancestors, and they just made the most beautiful and divine emu feather skirts and objects, and I was really inspired by that. Also, I think I love the aesthetic of emu feathers. I think they're really unique. They definitely represent, for me, my heritage. They represent Australia. They are, and also emu feathers in themselves are quite a beautiful thing. They're the only feather in the world that's a double feather. Two feathers are joined at the top. And also emus, they're fiercely protective of their young and of their families, and they have a lot of great qualities that I kind of connect with. Anybody else?
You're primarily an art photographer, so why did you choose to do the text?
I did study as a photographer at TAFE, but ever since I've been practicing, I have done a range of photography, video and installation. It's just, I think that the photography has been probably the best work because I've studied it. I think what I do without really thinking about it is take quite complex ideas and give them a simple visual reference. I think I do that quite naturally. I'm very good at simplifying things. It's looking at something very complex and going, this is what's needed, or this is what it is, or cutting through things. And probably the text for me was just the best, clearest, easiest way to get across what I was trying to say. Yes. Thank you.
Something at work that says be well, be happy, be free, and it's supposed to be if you're in a situation where you are being hurt, it's not about you being well, happy, and free. It's wishing that on the person that is doing the hurt to you. That's the liberating.
Yeah, thank you. I think the thing about forgiveness that I have learned is that what happens when we are traumatised in our lives is that we're kind of disempowered by people and by events. And we tend to, and for as long as we hold on to trauma, it turns into resentment, it turns into bitterness, it manifests as destructive behaviours. For as long as we hold on to that, we actually are remaining disempowered by those people and those events. The problem is that when people think about forgiveness, they often think that by forgiving you will be, in fact, giving away more of your power. But forgiving is actually about taking your power back and about being re-empowered and no longer allowing that thing that hurt to live inside you, to take up space in your head, to kind of consume you. And it's not necessarily about forgetting or saying that what happened was okay or all right or acceptable, because obviously these things are not okay or right and acceptable. It's about saying that I will no longer be consumed by the things that have hurt me. I will no longer be a victim of these things, and I will take my power back and set myself free. Absolutely. So forgiveness is not for the other person or the event, it's for you. For me, that was a massive revelation. Yes. Yeah.
This particular work, for me, you as representatives that you have gone through all of that.
Yeah.
But still, it's up to that person
Yeah. To create discussion. Yeah. That's good. Funnily enough, when I first thought about installing it, I thought about having more feathers on the ground, like tears. But I didn't do that in the end. Yeah. I think the other thing is too, when you have come from such a broken place, no matter who attacks you or what they do, it's easier to see them as being broken on some level as well. So it's easier to have a softness towards someone even when they're hurting you. In relation to Andrew Bolt, funnily enough, making art has taught me a lot of things about how people basically see themselves in art. And I think when people see other people, we're actually seeing ourselves as well. So I've had a lot of time to think about Andrew Bolt, and I actually think that what people see in someone else is what's inside of them. And so if he looked at us and he could see an opportunistic person and someone who's willing to walk over other people to get where they're going, and also somebody who has constructed their identity, then I actually think that's what's in him. Because if he can see that, then he knows that. Yeah. So, I guess for me over time I had to take it back to a psychological kind of level of why is he really doing this? And I think the things that he saw, that he thought he saw in us that he didn't like, are things that he doesn't like in himself and hasn't reconciled. Because at the end of the court case, I gave evidence in federal court, and I was found to have not constructed, to have my integrity and to have not been opportunistic. In fact, to have had all of my achievements been of my own merit. And his identity was called into question, and he was kind of revealed to me as being opportunistic. And so it's almost like those things were thrown back on him. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Slightly painful, but good in the end. Yeah. It's a really big question, isn't it? And I guess it's probably the question that the work poses the most. Do I ever think that Black Australia will ever forgive White Australia for the colonial history that has occurred? I hope so, yeah. Because I think that that is the doorway to healing. But I don't know. Yeah. 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 Well, there definitely is that aspect in there, and I would find it really difficult to speak for everybody, but I feel like it is definitely a discussion that I would like to keep having, and I hope that this work creates the context for, probably more than anything else, for Black Australia to talk about it. Yeah, it's probably, which is interesting being in a big contemporary gallery, and these are the things I think about. How do I actually get this conversation happening outside of here and in communities and with key people? One of the things I do think is I think if anything like that was ever to happen, it'd probably come through the women in the community. I don't know why I think that, but I feel like women would be key in that kind of area. Perhaps we're just more open in a way to, or maybe just more engaged with our own stuff. But it's that's a huge question. And I think probably the thing that people will see initially when they look at this work, but not necessarily why I made it, although I know that it's wrapped up in there. Yes. Hi. Thank you. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I know, I'm so excited. Yeah. You really pissed me off, but yeah. That you forgive him. Yeah. 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 Yes.
Everyone does that, which is what you're inspiring. You inspire me through the GOMA class, which is to make that step. And it's an amazing life when we get into that soft spot.
Yeah.
So I thought you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's probably time for a few more questions, if there are any. Yeah? A few minutes. Yes.
This is just related to what I asked earlier. When I read this, I think most of the white people in the room will, they read the you as you're addressing us. It's something that's like you that you can give it.
Yes.
If you don't know the backstory, the personal story. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about, because it does have that sense, something from my cultural perspective. Have you given any thought in how this book addresses some of your Aboriginal descent? In terms of, the message you seem to be giving is actually, in a way, directed at the Aboriginal community in terms of this is a strategy that you would like to see disseminated. And I'm just wondering if there was any, difference that, in how somebody from that background would perceive his work in terms, in relation to the way that I might actually.
Sure. I mean, well, I think that I don't really have a strategy. I mean, it does come from a really personal place. And when I was making it, I was also thinking about colonisation and generational stuff that I'm probably carrying as well. The previous work that I made, 70 times 7, about forgiveness, I actually made it as a commission in Campbelltown. And so I'm from Melbourne. So if I were to make work in Melbourne, I know the community. I've got heaps of volunteers that will step in and help me to make work and realise the vision that I have. But I had to go to Campbelltown and engage with the Aboriginal community there, not really knowing anybody at all. And so here I was, this artist from Melbourne, going up to Campbelltown. I went to a couple of women's meetings there, going, hi, I'm Bindi, I'm Watharung from Melbourne. How do you feel about forgiveness? And I got various responses. And so some of those responses, and I always preempted it by talking about my own life and my own experience, because that's where my knowledge comes from. It's not coming from university degrees or reading books. It's coming from what I've personally experienced. And so some women said, oh, sis, we know what you're trying to do, but there's just no way, I can't even go into that space. But others said, yes, I'm ready, I'm interested, I want to be a part of it, I am willing to go there. And I reckon that's probably how it would be across the board. Some people will say, absolutely no, I couldn't ever forgive what's occurred, and other people will get it and be willing to try and perhaps open up that space within themselves. And I mean, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, I hope that people receive it as it's offered, which is a genuine expression of my experience and heart to see people set free. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bindi. I think it's also important to mention something you mentioned to me over the phone as well, and that's that forgiveness is not about forgetting as well. And for a lot of people, it's also about being open to dialogue and facing up to the historical facts of Australia, which are often denied today. So I think the work's really really loaded, although it's a very simple text piece, and we're just so happy to have it in the show. So thank you very much, Bindi, and please everybody thank Bindi for coming along today.